Hey everyone, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this case, talking about surviving a nuclear bomb. Okay, getting quite a bit of messages, email about this concerns. A lot of you guys seem to be worried, especially given what's happening with North Korea. And I thought I'd do a video addressing this. First of all, we have to get over the idea, this common idea of there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do to survive a nuclear bomb if it goes off. That seems to be the general consensus. It is not quite like that. It is very bad, no doubt, but there's quite a bit of things that you can do so as to survive a nuclear attack, a nuclear bomb, and especially if you know exactly what to do, which is what I'm going to be covering in this video. No kidding, if something like this ever happens, honestly, if you watch these few minutes, you will have information that may indeed save your life. So stay tuned if this is something that really does concern you. All right, so it seems that mostly people are worried because of what's happening with North Korea. Let's try to understand a little bit of what North Korea is capable of doing. One of the latest tests they pulled off, that's in February 2013, seems to be a successful detonation of a 10 kiloton nuke. Right? Maybe wondering, what does 10 kiloton mean? 1 kiloton is the equivalent of 1,000 tons of TNT. Okay, that's the kind of power that we're talking about. 10 kilotons is what North Korea has recently been able of doing. What kind of damage are we talking about when we talk about 10 kilotons? So as we have it as reference, keep in mind that the little boy, which is the bomb used in Hiroshima, the little boy, that was a 15 kiloton bomb. Okay, so as to keep in mind as of what that means. Let's suppose that this is something that is worrying you. We have to identify also which are likely to be the targets in which a nuclear bomb would be used. In general, we're talking about cities with large amounts of population, hundreds of thousands, and military targets. So if you're in a big city, in a big metropolis where there's lots of people in there, that may be a target of a nuclear attack. If you're close to a military base or important military target, that would be another possibility. Those two would be likely objectives of a nuclear strike. So what is exactly that you should be doing? Let's suppose for a second we're looking at this as a map. All right, maybe you have I don't know, maybe you have the seaside here. Okay, we have little boats or whatnot, and we have a city there. Just like looking at it as a map, all right? Within a half-mile radius, if a 10 kiloton bomb explodes in that city, within half a mile, that 10 kiloton bomb will basically vaporize everything within that half a mile. The chances of anything surviving are very slim. It's talking about a fatality rate of 90% fatality. Okay, yeah, especially the intense heat that generates it. It's pretty bad if you are that close. Now, as soon as you start putting more distance, your chances start improving. If we now are talking about 2-mile radius, chances of surviving are 50%, because it's a 50% fatality rate. Still talking about buildings being destroyed, fires, so it is going to be pretty bad. But as the further away we get from the city, the larger the odds of surviving are. if we now go to an 8-mile radius, fatality rate is between 10 and 20%. So within the immediate surroundings of the bomb, pretty much everything is vaporized. Incredible amount of pressure generated by the explosion, thousands of degrees of heat, basically burns, scorches, and then vaporizes everything within that range. 2 miles, you still are, pretty bad. Buildings are being leveled and such, and you're still pretty close. Now, within an 8-mile radius, your chances start improving quite a bit. 10-20% fatality rate still means that you have quite a bit of chances of surviving if you manage to survive the collapsing structures, the fires and such. Now, this is just part of the problem of a nuclear explosion, all right? When a nuclear bomb goes off like that, you have the typical mushroom like that, and the worst actually comes afterward, when all this stuff starts going down with radiation. Still trying to keep it as simple as possible, so you guys that know a lot of this stuff don't throw any hate at me on the comments. I'm keeping it as simple as possible for making a quick video. Basically, here we have 3 types of rays. Okay, you have alpha rays, you have beta rays, and you have gamma rays. Alpha rays are actually quite easy to stop. Even a sheet of paper would stop these, and so would your skin, so it's not that much of a concern. Beta rays are a little bit worse. Maybe you need a 1/2 inch plywood to stop it, but if in contact with skin, it will still burn your skin, especially if it goes inside your body when eating, when drinking water. It's still going to be causing damage, ulcers, burns and such, so this is still quite bad. And this is one of the reasons why you avoid the fallout, the radioactive particles. So you have to find a way of keeping those particles away from your body as much as possible. Having an NBC suit covering yourself completely, respirator. You have to keep the radioactive particles as away from you as much as possible, avoiding contact and going inside your body. Worst seems to be gamma rays. Gamma rays are the ones that require for you to have an actual fallout shelter. You will be needing 3 feet of earth to stop gamma rays. With 3 feet of earth between you and the gamma rays, 3 feet of earth stop 99.9% of gamma rays. So if you have a fallout shelter, or even a basement, if you place yourself correctly, suppose this is a basement and you're hiding there, right? You have this earth between you and the explosion that's going to be helping. Now, some of the fallout shelters seen, some of the improvised, I should say, fallout shelters are basically a hole in the ground, some 2x4s across so as to make a roof, and covered with earth. That's going to be providing a certain amount of protection. Actually, it's going to be providing pretty good protection from gamma rays, even though we still have to talk about the particles, the airborne particles that still would be able to get in because of that. But suppose you have a good respirator, NBC suit, and you're hiding there, your chances are going to be much, much better. Now, what happens on... Let's suppose that you survive. Let's suppose you are about here and you survive the initial blast. What you have to keep in mind is the wind, the direction of the wind, because you have between the explosion, once the explosion takes place, these particles, you will have between 10 and 20 minutes before these particles start falling on you. All right, so you saw the explosion. Going to be getting to that in a second. You don't actually have to look at the explosion because it's going to be burning your eyes, leaving you permanently or temporarily blind, so avoid that as much as you can. But as soon as the explosion goes off, you have 10 to 20 minutes to get away from there as fast as you can. You have to identify the wind. Where is the wind coming from? Let's suppose that the wind is coming from the west. In this case, the wind is pulling in this direction. Right? It's making a plumb like this, something similar to what happens when a volcano goes off, and it's incredible. I've seen it in Argentina with some of the volcanoes erupting in the south. It actually brought ashes all over to Buenos Aires, so it's amazing how far wind will take this radioactive stuff. So let's suppose you're here, you have the wind coming this way, you know that the direction you should be going is perpendicular 90 degrees in this direction away from it. Okay, once you get away from it, you are safe. All right, so you have to identify that. It's gonna be, yeah, something like this. It's gonna be what the wind is gonna be creating after the explosion. Goes up, gets pulled by the wind. You don't have that much time. 10 minutes only. If you take into consideration that a nuclear bomb just exploded not that far away from you, you're gonna be in quite a bit of a shock. But your main objective should be that. So let's write down first how this would go down. You have to protect your eyes. Keep your eyes shut, right? First of all, don't look at the nuclear explosion. It's so bright, it's going to be burning your eyes. So do not look. Look away from it. When you hear something like that, look away from it. So as to protect your eyes. Open your mouth so that the pressure generated by the explosion doesn't blow your eardrums as well. So close your eyes, look away from it, and open your mouth. Second, you have to get away from there. Identify wind. Second would be identify wind direction. All right, and get out as fast as possible. Don't waste time covering your body with layers and such. Your priority, if you're still alive, is going to be getting out of there, as we talked about here, because of the wind, as fast as you can. Then yes, if at possible, cover your body. If you have an NBC suit, that would be ideal. If you have a respirator, guys, are something, a topic that I've covered in the past, so check some of my videos on respirators. I think it does cover quite a bit of possible scenarios, not only nukes, but industrial accidents, fires, ash, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty important. That's why I've covered it before, so keep that in mind. Now, before all this, what you should do, let's call this like the point zero, is identifying the route you would be taking so as to get away from it, knowing the general wind direction, the predominant wind direction where you are from. So let's suppose you're living somewhere here. You know there's a major city here. Know where most commonly winds come from. Yes, they do change directions, and you would have to check right there where is it exactly that it's coming from. But that will give you a good idea of where you should be heading, what routes you should be taking when this happens. Remember, just 10-20 minutes. You do not have a lot of time. This goes along with lots of the other stuff that we've talked about, your equipment, your bug out bags. If you have all this ready, it's just a matter of maybe grabbing just one of your main bag just before leaving, getting on your vehicle, and just leaving as fast as you can. All right, so time is a key factor here, given that you, of course, managed to survive the first blast. Let's suppose that you just cannot leave because of a number of reasons. Let's suppose you just have to shelter in place, as it's called. In that case, hopefully you will have a nuclear shelter, a basement at the very least, which provides those 3 feet of earth between you, so as to be safe from those gamma rays. All right. If you don't have something like that, if it's and here it gets a little bit trickier because there's going to be several other factors. The first thing you should do, if at all possible, is get away from that. Let's suppose you cannot get away from it, sheltering it in place. If it's a ground blast, you would have a certain degree of protection in an apartment building such as this one, from either in the basement, below ground, or from the 9th floor up. That means you will have enough material between you so as to be safe. Hopefully, if it ever comes down to this, you will get into one of the inner rooms, avoiding the ones that are from more in the contact with the exterior. So I'm looking at it from a floor plan perspective. let's suppose you have like elevators here and here, you have apartments, you have to try to be as away from the walls as possible. All right, 9th floor up or underground if it's a ground blast. And this is of course giving that you couldn't manage to get away from it, as we talked here. Escaping it is of course the priority, rather than sheltering in place when it's a nuclear blast. So folks, that's basically it. Just a few quick things to keep in mind. Finally, before I forget, how long should you shelter in place? Let's suppose you have a fallout shelter, and you saw the nuke go off. You run to your shelter, you close the door. How much time should you stay there? Well, let's take a look to one of my first survival books I bought when I was 12 years old. Here we have, well, this is actually in Spanish, but first hour, the amount of fallout that you have, 7 hours later, 48 hours later, and 2 weeks later. 48 hours later, 72 hours later, you're much better off. Your chances of survival have increased quite a bit. In the best case, if you're able to stay for that long, 2 weeks inside the shelter would be best, so that radiation is low enough so as to improve your chances of survival. Folks, that's basically it for now. I hope you enjoy my little videos. Have a great day. See you on our next video.